So I'm Sam, and this is Baby Ready, and I want to welcome you back again for another episode. So I told you that I would tell you more about the birth process itself. Now we're getting into numbers and things like that, and I really encourage you not to be a numbers person. I'll give you some numbers, but don't focus on those, because what can happen is we get mired in the numbers, and that can slow things down. We've all heard the saying, a watched pot never boils, and we all know that that's not true. Just basic science tells us that if you leave the heat under a pot of water for long enough, it will eventually boil. It won't avoid that. But a watched labor can stall, and it will not generally progress effectively. So if you pay too much time focusing on your labor, on the numbers in labor and how things are going and how you are feeling, then it's easy to get mired in all of that. And what happens as a result is that our pelvic floor muscles and the muscles in our pelvis and in our lower abdomen that aren't the ones responsible for pushing that baby down in the uterus and pulling that cervix up around the baby's head and moving the baby down through the bone structure of the pelvis, those other muscles get so tight that the uterus can't work effectively. We get into a fight or flight mode where all of our blood shunts to our extremities so that we're, ready to run if we need to. And we can't run away from labor. We have to passively let it happen to us. And that's overwhelmingly difficult to do. Don't get me wrong. It is incredibly challenging to do. So while I tell you that that's what I want you to do, is to ignore labor for as long as possible, keep yourself as relaxed as possible, don't get mired in the numbers. I also know that there will be points in your labor where you get pulled back into that stuff, and that's just human nature. So what I do want you to do, what I want you to give yourself permission to do, is to pay attention to whatever you're feeling, however you're feeling. Take that deep breath and let that stress go. If you take that deep breath and you consciously relax your shoulders and relax your jaw, then you will bring relaxation down through other parts of your body. And it's excellent practice, even during pregnancy, to bring relaxation through your breath through different parts of your body. So this is something to get into the swing of. So I will spend more time talking about that when we're talking about coping strategies and things like that. But for now, we're talking about the labor process. When this is your first baby, it is not uncommon for things to stop and start and stop and start and stop and start 2 or 3 or 4 times before labor really kicks in and gets underway. And so if that is the case, I want you to just let it happen. And every single time you think that the process might be starting, I want you to go back to what I said before. Try to make it stop. If this is not truly it, there's nothing you can do to make it happen. So we're going to try getting things to stop. If they are going to continue to progress, then the worst that's going to happen is that you're going to be relaxed and refreshed to have energy for later in the labor process. So what does all of that mean? Early labor starts, and with early labor, sometimes we call it pre-labor. Not a lot of physiologic changes take place. We spend so much time focusing on how dilated someone needs to be able to have a baby, to push that baby out. It's dilated. And if I asked you how many centimeters dilated you needed to be before you were told that you could begin to push your baby out, you would all know without having to look it up that number is 10 centimeters, which, if you're outside of Canada, does measure about 4 inches or so. Okay, we need to get to 10 centimeters. Perfect. But what no one ever spends time telling you about is that your cervix is long and thick. And so it needs to shrink down. It needs to become stretchy, like the elastic on a head of broccoli. You buy a head of broccoli, you know the elastic I'm talking about. It's so tight, it's holding those broccoli stems together. And really and truly, most of us just take the scissors, cut that because it's too tight to open and pull a broccoli stalk out. But if you sat on the sofa with your elastic, broccoli elastic in your hands, and over the course of several hours just gradually stretched it and let it go, then it would over time begin to stretch just a little bit more. It would become thinner as you were stretching it, and you would see that the thickness of the physical band isn't just thick this way, but thick this way too. And so you're breaking the fibers down in the elastic to make it more stretchy. What needs to happen to our cervix is that we need to break those tissues down a little bit so that they shrink down and they become thin so that they can stretch and accommodate baby's head. And we need to be about 80% effaced or thinned out before the cervix can begin to truly open to allow the baby to pass through it. And truth be told, that takes hours and sometimes a day or so before you get to that point. But the upside of all of that is that contractions are typically during that time 20 or 30 seconds in duration, and they're not coming, they're there the whole time and then they disappear. They start off gradually, they build for a little bit, they peak, and then they start to disappear. So in a 20-second contraction, you're maybe having 3 to 5 seconds worth of discomfort. But the rest of it is the building up of the contraction and the disappearing of the contraction. And then you don't feel anything at all again until the next contraction comes. And we time contractions from the beginning of one, as I said before, to the beginning of the next. And at the beginning of labor, contractions are often 15 to 20 minutes apart. So keep things in perspective. If I tell you that the average labor for a first-time birthing parent is 18 to 24 hours in duration, start to finish, and you remember that that's an average, so some are much quicker and some are much longer, but actually being in labor, 18 to 24 hours on average before we see a baby. So that means that you're going to need to do several hours worth of work before anything really kicks into good gear. And that's okay because we're getting those breaks. At 15 to 20 minutes apart, lasting 20 to 30 seconds, we're talking 2 or 3 minutes worth of work in a few hours. And when you put it into perspective, it makes a lot more sense and it feels a lot more doable. In early labor, as I say, the primary focus for your body is getting those contractions to sit on the cervix long enough to just make those fibers stretchy and thin. Contractions may start 15 to 20 minutes apart, but they will get down to between 3 and 5 minutes apart. And they will be lasting by the end of early labor, maybe about 30 to 45 seconds. And all of that can take a good 10 to 14 hours of consistent contractions. When your contractions happen for 2 or 3 hours, or even through all of one night, and then stop with the dawn and don't start again until you go to bed the following night, that's not consistent contractions. It feels like it to you. Please do not misunderstand me. I'm not taking away, and I don't want to take away from what you are feeling or will feel. But I want you to remember that we need those contractions to be consistent for a period of time. And the other way to look at it is that sometimes it's a bit of a gift. If your body gives you contractions all through the night, and they're fairly consistent through the night, but they stop with the dawn and they give you the chance to rest through the day and through the evening, and then they start again the next night. Sometimes those individuals find that their labor is shortened overall because some of the work's been done in small chunks before labor really got underway. So that's early labor. I feel like I've talked a lot about early labor so far. I'm just going to give you a few tips, and then the next time I'm going to talk to you a little bit more about active labor and that kind of thing. So we're working through the labor process. In early labor, keep yourself distracted. If you've got groceries to buy, go buy them. If you want to buy a gift for the baby that you can give to baby when the baby's first born, go to the mall and get it once COVID is finished, and assuming that we're allowed back in the malls again. Go for a walk, go out for dinner. Make yourself laugh, release endorphins, however you can release endorphins, whether it's through sex, whether it's through excellent, good quality chocolate, whether it's through movies and laughter. Find ways to release endorphins. But remember, however much energy you expend through walking, through exercising, through sex, I want you to go to the other side, and I want you to conserve some energy for a period of time that matches, because I don't want you exhausting yourself in the beginning of the process when things are going to become more intense further down the road. I want you to have a chance to regroup and recover so that you're ready for the next step. All right, so that's early labor. We'll talk about active labor next time. Thanks so much.